Voicemeeter recently updated its popular software mixing software and added a lot of nice features that warrants an update to my streaming guides. I think that you'll find that this update will address a lot of the issues many complained about with the previous version, most notably its stability and the microphone processing controls. Now, many of you may be familiar with Voicemeeter. Well, and as far as I know, the UI, as far as UI goes at least, not enough has really changed to make you lose your ability to navigate around the UI. But for many of you, this may be your first experience. So what I'll do is I'll go through the basics of it so that you will understand how it works before diving into my recommended streaming setup for your single PCs. So let's dive in. Hey, listen, if you are new to this channel, you're watching this video for the first time on the TFS channel, I first of all want to thank you and appreciate you stopping by and watching this video. But listen, I would love for you to continue to do so. So please hit the subscribe button. And, hey, if you like this video, make sure you hit that like, support that algorithm. I need all the help I can get. But I do appreciate you at least giving me the chance to educate you a little bit today on Voicemeeter. Since Voicemeeter Potato is the most complicated and feature-rich of the three versions out there, Potato is what I'm going to use for this tutorial. If you're watching this and you're learning about Voicemeter's existence, let's walk through downloading and installing the software and everything that you'll need for this. Voicemeeter is developed by French company VB Audio and is focused on professional audio solutions for a variety of uses. Voicemeeter, while not geared for gamers specifically when first released many years ago, it does work well as an inexpensive mixing solution for your live streams. It is offered as donateware, and I'm saying that in quotes, and uses a recommended pay model based on your use case, but the level you use does not limit its functionality. So, if you are a company, you can pay more, or as a fan, pay the minimum and get the same functionality. It is also available for free, but will eventually start annoying timers that will eventually force you to pay the minimum to continue use. To do this, you must first download Voicemeeter Potato's zip file, donate link I provided down in the description below. Unzip the file and then use the Potato setup file to install Potato. I recommend getting Potato because when you do, you will also get Voicemeeter Basic and Banana along with Potato if you decide to use those for more ease of use. If you get one of the others, you will not get Potato as part of the package. Once it is installed, restart your PC because Windows Audio Table needs to route all the new audio paths you just installed. Once restarted, you can begin to then play with Voicemeeter Potato. You may need to make a desktop shortcut to the exe file. I prefer just pinning it to the taskbar for quick starting. I also recommend going to the file properties and check the run as administrator option to avoid the annoying pop-up every time it starts up. Now the Potato is installed, you can see how it works on your system. I would like to say that 100% of you will have success running this without issue, but that just isn't the case, which is why they have you download it for free and test it before buying it. So let's talk basic mixing functions so you'll kind of understand the lingo that I'm going to use moving forward here with the tutorial. Potato uses both physical and virtual inputs and outputs to receive and send audio from Windows apps and physical devices. Hardware or physical inputs are things like sound cards, microphones, USB devices, and Bluetooth if your PC does support that. Virtual devices are software devices used by Windows to patch audio from an app to Voicemeeter. VB Audio makes VB cables, which connects to an app to Voicemeeter or another software such as OBS, vMix, or DAWs like Studio One. A new feature and one that takes advantage of Windows 11 audio routing is built-in virtual inputs to your hardware input channels that reside in Windows for easy routing. And let me tell you, it works wonderfully. For Potato, you have 5 hardware input channels, 3 virtual channels called VAIO. I'll refer to this as VAIO input channels for the rest of the time, and an equal number of output channels. The output channels are really buses, and is how I'll refer to them going forward. Buses A1 through 5 are physical bus outputs, whereas B1 through 3 are virtual VAIO bus outputs. You can send any input channel to a bus by left-clicking the bus in the channel you want to send it to. They are conveniently located in each channel for use. Now, let's focus on the processing capabilities of each hardware input channel. Each hardware input channel has basic and advanced levels of processing for your sources. Namely, you have gate, compression, and EQ that you can use to tweak your source audio. Basic controls are located on the top level UI of each channel, where you can then access advanced controls by right-clicking to get to the second level UI. Here, you can really control parameters like threshold, attack, release, etc. Now, I'll have a separate video on how to use these to tune your microphone and to control dynamics in sources such as your music going to your stream. You can also have the ability to add reverb and delay with built-in effects plugins that you can route as an effects bus to mix into your dry signal. This is very helpful if you plan on using this for music streams, not so much for regular streams or podcasts though. Each hardware channel has patch points also where you can patch a VST host for third-party processing of each source, but I won't cover that today as it's a little too advanced for most people. I will, though, link a video on one that I did for the previous version of Voicemeeter that I really think should work for this version. Now, each channel comes with an array of choices for controlling and modifying the sound of each source to meet your needs. Each channel level is controlled by a fader that you can control with your mouse, Stream Deck, a MIDI device, or device like the audio controller from which I use. Mine was originally designed for the basic Voicemeeter, so you could only get 3 knobs to program, but there is a number of MIDI devices out there if you're willing to invest in one. Likewise, the third-party Stream Deck plugin works okay for most people. A lot also choose to use Touch Portal, as it is more customizable. Each are options I think you should consider exploring. V-Band is another function that allows you to use your home network to route audio from one PC to another PC or a mobile device. This is something that I will cover in detail for my dual PC streaming tutorial that will follow this video here in a few weeks. Potato also gives you recording functionality where you can select input channels or output buses to record for voiceovers, podcasts, interviews, etc. You can do a number of popular formats, including WAV and MP3. Potato also supports sample rates and bit depths that Windows supports, and as a helpful tip, you need to ensure that Voicemeeter and Windows match to avoid any artifacts in your audio. Now, I'll step through this in a moment. Potato allows you, though, to rename each input on the UI, and you can also rename the Windows virtual devices, which will reflect in Voicemeeter. Personally, I recommend doing this, and again, I'll show you how in a moment. Okay. I think that is all the basics you really need to know to get started. There's plenty to learn, and 3 years of using this, I have learned that the best way to learn it is by using it. My hope is that this guide will give you a basic understanding so that you can really just dive into Voicemeeter without it being overwhelming to look at. So let's get started with setting this up so you can start using it for yourself. The first step to setting up Voicemeeter is in assigning an output device to the A1 output bus. Without this reference, Voicemeeter will not work, and it is imperative that you try to use the best output you have. Everybody, in the middle of editing this video, I realized a grave mistake. Not a grave mistake, but a mistake nonetheless. When discussing Voicemeeter, especially this part here that is on initial startup, when you're initially setting this up. Old Voicemeeter, you used to have to set the A1 output to some sort of sound card device, whatever you're using. And I said interface or sound card in this instance here. That's not the case anymore. On initial startup, Voicemeeter will use an internal clock that will allow you to add all of your sources to your inputs and outputs, and it will work just fine. Check, 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 check. Key is you still want to add your sound card or an interface, whatever you're going to use to be your primary for your monitoring. But to get this working initially, you do not have to add an interface to Voicemeeter. It will work automatically. And you should see internal clock displayed at the top for the initialization of Voicemeeter when you first start it up, whether it be an audio interface or a sound card. If you have both, I would use your audio interface. I'm using the Wave XLR headphone output. If your interface supports ASIO, that would be your best choice for latency. Otherwise, I would suggest trying to use WDM devices. KS and MME or older formats have greater latency. Simply left click on the A1 button and a new UI to Voicemeeter will pop up. Just select the device you intend to use for primary audio playback. I recommend this be designed as your primary monitor bus, whether it be headphones or a set of studio monitors. For here, you can begin to set up your channel strips. I always work from left to right, so we'll start with far left channel hardware input 1. Just below the name, you left click, which really isn't obvious and could be a UI improvement. And the same UI that popped up for A1 will again be used here. You can add whatever audio source you want, but for me, I always use this strip for my microphone, and I'll do this here again. Once selected, you will be able to speak into your microphone and see the level meter change, showing that you have signal going to the channel. Check, 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 check. If not, well, you definitely have a microphone issue that you need to address. Once added, I suggest renaming the channel to something like mic or microphone. This will be the same for all your channel strips that you use. It just makes it easier for you to know at a glance what you have on each channel. Now next, you need to decide what buses you want the mic to go to. For me, I'm going to use 4 buses: a monitor bus, a stream bus, a record bus, and a guest monitor bus. So to send the mic to a bus, just click on the corresponding button to the right of the level meter. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, check, check. Next, let's get music working. Hardware input channel 2 will be our next channel, and we will designate this a music channel. With the new version of Potato, they added virtual devices, which in essence are virtual buses, because you can add multiple apps to them for sending audio to Voicemeeter. These are VAIOs and are labeled by default as Voicemeeter in and then a number that represents the number with a downward pointing triangle on the button for each channel strip or bus output. These are what I rename to whatever I'm going to use them for. So for music, we will use the Voicemeeter Into and rename it to Voicemeeter Into Music in Windows Sound Settings. Then you will need to assign Voicemeeter Into Music to any music app you want going to that channel. I use Spotify, but you could also use any browser if you use music for that. Later, we'll set up a channel specifically for browsers, so choose whatever you prefer. Once you add each app to the virtual input bus, it is just a matter of turning it on in the channel strip. When you do, it should change color to cyan and you should see the volume meter or level meter showing a signal level once you hit play on any of the music apps you've routed to Voicemeeter. For audio level, I recommend leaving the sliders at Unity, which reads 0 dB, and adjusting the volume of the app to achieve between -12 and -18 dB dBFS. I prefer it being a little closer to -12 dB personally. You can activate a bus output for that channel and read the bus's measured output right above the level meter for the bus. Speak as loud as you can in your mic, adjust gain until it reads about -12 there. For music, find the loudest portion of a song that you know well and adjust the volume on the music app until you get around the same. Then you can mix accordingly to make it louder or quieter in your mix. Here's another helpful tip. If by chance you move your fader slider and want it quickly back to Unity, just double left click on it and it'll go back to Unity. Hardware input channel 3 is next, and we will designate this for browser audio. Now I use Chrome and Edge. You need to assign a virtual bus to them. So let's start both browsers so we can assign them to a virtual bus, which I have renamed to Voicemeeter N3 browser. You'll need to have a video or music playing through your browser so it will show up in the Windows volume mixer to assign the N3 browser virtual bus. Select the arrow beside the volume slider for the app and a list of input and output sources will be listed. Select the N3 browser bus we just renamed under the audio device pull-down list. You shouldn't mess with input devices for browsers. It's just not needed. Now, for time's sake, the rest of your inputs are essentially the same. All you need to decide is what you're going to use them for. There are 2 other channels I use for my mix for general streaming. I use another hardware input channel for chat apps like Discord, Zoom, or Teams. There is one thing to keep in mind in relation to Discord or programs similar to that allow you to set specific audio devices in your app. By default, they are selected the default device for input and output, which work normally. But for some reason, some Voicemeeter users find that this doesn't work for them when Voicemeeter buses are set in Windows as the default input and output devices. Now, to remedy this, you may need to manually use them in each app instead of leaving them at default. This is especially true if you intend on using a specific input device that is separate from your default output, which is how I recommend, to be honest. For Discord, you'll go to Settings, Voice and Video, and then change the input to your microphone output bus, B1 for my example, and the Discord output, whatever channel virtual device input you choose that isn't being used. I recommend disabling all the audio effect processing in Discord since you will process your microphone in Voicemeeter. This will allow better control of your input gain in Discord and it won't destroy your vocal quality. You can then go back and add any that you feel is necessary one at a time to determine if they are needed or not. Most of the time, you should be good with just leaving them off. Now, there are 3 software input channels available for use, and I use the first virtual VAIO channel for system audio for Windows. So let's take a look at that channel because it is a bit different than the hardware input channels. This channel in Windows is listed as Voicemeeter input and is what I recommend for your default playback device. All Windows alerts and everything that does not have a specific device assigned to it, it'll go to this channel. So, open your sound settings in Windows and under Output, select Voicemeeter Input. That's really all you need to do. This channel is essentially hardwired in Voicemeeter and cannot be changed like the hardware channels can. The other 2 channels are called Voicemeeter Aux Input and Voicemeeter VAIO3 Input. You can use them for anything you like. The neat thing about these channels is when an app is assigned to them, it appears with its own slider to control its level and muting within the channel in the Voicemeeter UI. This could be very helpful if you're using different meeting apps at the same time, such as Teams or Zoom, and you need to mute a person in one app while the other app is speaking, for example. So, you may want to assign either aux or VAIO3 for that. Well, that's what's really nice about Potato. With 8 channels of audio, it gives you tons of flexibility. Now that all your input channels are assigned, you need to figure out what buses you want them going to. As I mentioned earlier, I have my own buses, and you have basically the same options for outputs as inputs. All your hardware or A outputs and your virtual or B outputs have virtual output buses generated to be used in Windows, and that is how I'm using them to send to apps. For my own monitoring, I use the A1 output that goes directly to my Elgato Wave XLR. For the B1 virtual output, I use this exclusively as my mic output, which is renamed Voicemeeter B1 Mic Out in the Windows sound settings. For some reason, it will not allow special characters, just numbers and letters, FYI. In your mic input channel, ensure that the B1 button is on and colored seafoam green. So that audio will then go to B1. For the A2 hardware output, I will use my stream bus. So any channels you want going to the stream bus, make sure A2 is turned on, colored seafoam green. Now, I turn on the A2 virtual bus, the 2 with the upside down triangular arrow, and turn it on. Should be colored cyan if on. Then any input channel being sent to the A2 will go to the virtual device named Voicemeeter Out A2, provided you turn it on in each of the input channels that you want to send it to. I renamed this to Voicemeeter Out A2 Stream. In Meld Studio, my broadcast app of choice currently, I made an audio source channel and selected the A2 stream output as the source. Now I can mix all the sources in the input to one channel in Meld and keep things really simple. For A3, I use that as my record channel, and the same applies as with what it did for the A2 channel. For the A4, if you wanted to use that as a guest monitor bus, you can turn on anything your guest wants to hear, mainly your microphone, any audio you need them to listen to for a podcast or interview, and their own microphone. You do the same of any of the B channels that you aren't using, but keep in mind, They are hardwired on by default. So you turn on the button in your input channels and you will get an output from those channels, provided that they are not muted. There is another important function that you need to know about with Potato, and it is about monitoring. There is a function that allows you to adjust a monitor mix separate from another mix on the same output. If you hit the SEL button above the output mode, which is selected to normal mode by default, it will activate the monitor bus where you can adjust monitor level for your own listening comfort and it not affect the regular level for that input channel. Now by default, this is selected to the A1 output bus, but you can make it whatever you like under System Settings, which is located under the menu in the top right of the UI. If you select SEL for A2, for instance, and A2 is your monitor bus, then you'll need to have A2 output selected to your headphones or speakers. If you have it going to A1 and you select the SEL in A1, that will work also, but if you have them in A1 and you select the SEL in A2 with the A2 assigned as your monitor under settings, you won't hear anything. That's just some good info to know about. But best practice is to have the monitor and your headphone output match on the same A output channel. I use this on my mic because I don't need my mic listening level to be loud, barely audible to be honest, compared to the actual output, which needs to have solid gain to achieve a good overall loudness for your viewers. Now there's more to cover like channel strip processing, V-band, streamer view, and setting up for dual PC, but they need their own videos, which will be out in short order here. I do recommend going to Windows though, if you haven't done so already, and making your bus that you use for your microphone output as a default input device for Windows and the playback, whatever you choose for your system audio channel. Again, in this video's example, I used the first VMVAIO, which is the first of the 3 channels that we have. Then click on the menu, select Save Settings, and name the config file to whatever you want, and then select Save. That way your settings will be saved if you need to recall it at a later point. At this point, everything signal-wise should be set up in Potato, and it is a matter of testing your stream mix and setting up the source in your broadcast software. When you do, I suggest adding a compressor or a limiter as a filter to the source. If you have that option, and making the limiter activated about -3 dB. I assume most people are using OBS, and this is easily done there. If you want more control, I'd use the compressor to make the ratio 20:1, set the threshold to -3 dB. Then you can add makeup gain to really tighten up your loudness to get it to a -14 LUFS average, which is what YouTube uses. To measure LUFS or loudness units full scale, you can also download a free VST, such as Yolene, to quickly measure LUFS. It's okay for it to fluctuate a bit, but the average needs to be around -14 to reduce any additional normalization processing on their end, which could induce clipping on some stronger signals, but can be a whole other video in itself, let's be honest. The TLDR is here. It is best to do the processing on your end and know the level and quality is good before it hits the ingest servers for the service that you're going to stream to. I think once you do this, you'd be pretty much ready to go, except for tweaking your microphone sound to make it sound as good as it can be. This will be the next video, and Voicemeeter now gives you finite control at a channel level to make your microphones sound like a pro. So you'll need to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll know when it goes live. Everybody, thanks for watching, and if you're new to the TFS channel, welcome to the family. All you have to do, if you have specific questions, drop a comment down below. And I also do have a Discord where I or one of my fellow TFS community pros can answer any of your Voicemeeter questions. We'll see you in the next video.